What is up? It's NFL Week 5. This is DFS and Chill, Club Fantasy's weekly DFS show. I'm your host, Ryan Weisse, but nobody's here to see me, especially after these last couple weeks. I hope it's not disrespectful to call you the queen of DFS right now with the hit rate that you're putting out there, but my co-host every week, Kyra Wiaterowski. Kyra, how are you tonight?
Yeah, Ryan, I guess I can't say I haven't had much of a better week than I've been having over the last several weeks, actually, between my fantasy teams have been going off. My Scott Fishbowl is going good. The Cash Grabs article has been wildly successful. So I'm super happy about that. And not to put any more pressure on us or anything, but I did just get 700 new people to follow me. And
hopefully they're here.
We've got 1,400 more eyes watching and hoping that we give them some really good advice. So I'm super excited about it, and I can't wait to help people win money. That's super rewarding for me. Also super excited to have Alfredo on here today, and I'm not talking pasta. We're talking some DFS rosters today. I know
you're the first person that's ever made that joke. Thank you.
I had to. It was just out there, and there was no way that I couldn't acknowledge it. So, but no, I'm super happy to have him on here. I know you host your own podcast, the Pretend GM. So if you want to tell us a little something about that, so the people know what you got going on.
Yeah, I do. And first of all, I just want to say, I swear, I'm never working the karaoke mic like I've got right now. Okay. Normally I've got a good setup. Just so happens right before our episode yesterday, all my stuff just died on me. So I'm working thanks, Vig. There goes my co-host talking to me right now.
Nice.
So to tell you guys a little bit about the Pretend GM, it's a dynasty focused podcast. I'm a former college football scout. I used to work at FIU for about a season and a half there. Then coaching transition, everyone just went off to new jobs. And then my co-host is Dr. Vignesh Doraiswamy. He is a physician, and he's been such a good friend of mine for so many years. We've known each other since 2008. Each of us have been playing fantasy football for so much longer. We just decided to come together. We put together this show. We started working on it and wanted to do something that was just a little bit different, teaching people how to run their dynasty rosters and just kind of teach them almost really to be how to be a pretend GM and work their fantasy football team. So we do everything real short content, short form, just 20 minutes typically. And, we do all your basics, your start sit. We do a lot of trade talks in there. And then in the off season, I jump into a lot of the scouting stuff for the NFL draft. Vig is obviously the injury expert. So that's really helpful to have someone like that with us. But you guys can find the show on Twitter at the Pretend GM. As always, you can follow me at Alfredo Brown GM, and Vig is just simply at Dr. Vig.
I met these guys at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton. Honestly, two of the nicest people I've ever met. And I've told them that numerous times, but definitely worth a follow. I followed them after that. I've listened to your show. It's a great show. I love the format, and you guys just play so well off of each other. It's such a good show.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, for those tuning in for the first time, number one, hit subscribe. We do giveaways all the time, so please hit subscribe. You will enjoy all the content that Club Fantasy puts out. But this is a main slate show. We are going to focus mostly on the Sunday main slate, but we know it's Thursday. We know you want to make some money, and there happens to be a football game tonight. So what we do is we break everything down into three segments, rather. So we have the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Seattle Seahawks. I want to start with, on these showdown slates, there's going to have to be someone in the captain seat. Kyra, who is your captain for tonight? And I'm now seeing that it's the same name twice, but we'll get into that in a second. So Kyra, first, tell me about Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, so in my captain slot, this slate here with this showdown is pretty difficult because both of these offenses are really condensed. They're usually, they throw to the same people, and it's not going to be. You wouldn't place anybody at the lower dollar amount in really that captain slot. I know that you're going to want to fit Cooper Kupp in there. You're going to want to fit Matt Stafford in there, but they're super, super expensive. So someone that I found myself leaning towards was Darrell Henderson. And I know this game seems like it's going to be super pass heavy game script, but given Pete Carroll's love to run the ball and the Hawks are putrid run defense, I could see McVay going in the direction that he tries to run the ball here. He's going to play to their weaknesses. Being able to plug in Henderson at 12,600 on DK, it allows you to fit both the quarterbacks in to cover the passing offense and both sides as well. You can get creative and build your lineup having him in there. Henderson is low-key looked amazing. He's handling a huge percentage of the snap share. It's a little skewed because he got injured in week 2, so that the average is a little bit weird. It's at 84.9% of his snap share. But he's also been heavily targeted the last last week. He had 6 targets in his game back. Now he gets the Seahawks. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So I really like I want to go against people going with Cooper Kupp. They're going with their Tyler Lockett's. Yeah. They're going to try to aim for the wide receivers in this game. I'm for sure of it. And sometimes it almost seems like whenever something we think it's going to happen, it's going to be a heavy pass game. It always is the latter. Thursday nights are so freaking weird. So I don't mind taking the risk on going running back in this game. If I don't go running back, I know I'm cheating. I don't hate going with a cheaper alternative like a Van Jefferson in tournaments. I mean, I think that he's really come on and he's a super cheap option if you want to try to fit some of those other wide receivers in your lineups as well.
I like it. Alfredo, do you want to add to Darrell Henderson? I saw he was your captain selection as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. We did not share our points on this at all, but yeah, she basically said everything that I was about to say.
Of course, that's how it goes.
Just like even emphasize these points further when it comes to the budget. He's 4,000 cheaper than Stafford on DraftKings. He's 6,000 cheaper than Kupp. So to really emphasize how much of an advantage your team gets, your roster gets by putting Darrell Henderson into that captain spot. I mean, just with putrid is nice when you're talking about the Seahawks going up against running backs, right? And I know you mentioned it, Darrell Henderson being able to have such a high snap share. It is a little skewed, like we said, but to be getting 90% snap share or better when he is healthy, when he is available, you don't really turn that down. And even if this is just a heavy pass script game, Darrell Henderson catches the ball. Exactly. He's going to be in there. So I'm perfectly comfortable going with Darrell Henderson as my captain for this one.
And it probably helps everybody sleep a little easier that Sony Michel put the ball on the turf last week, which tends to not work out well if you're a backup running back.
Yeah. I mean, and he's already in there at he's almost reaching Najee Harris shares of snap counts, Darrell Henderson. So he's out there. He's going to give you opportunities. They're going to put him in positions to score. So.
And our goal here is always to make, if you're not a great DFS player, to make you better. One thing they're talking about here is you're going to see a lot of people who are going to try to put the quarterbacks or the high name wide receivers as their captain. The way you win big tournaments like this, where you have such a small lineup, is you have to be different. And Darrell Henderson's going to give you that ability, especially coming off of his own injury. And people are probably going to freak out a little bit when they see that Q tag next to his name, but he's going to play, and he's probably going to play a lot.
Ryan, I'm so sorry. I got to jump in here, man. This is I'm coming down with my first problem of being live. I never go live, so okay. You guys are my first.
All right,
my laptop is about to die, and I have to go run and grab my charger. Give me 30
go grab
seconds.
Your charger. We'll finish up the Thursday slate, and we'll have you ready for the main slate. Okay.
Great. Well, in the meantime, I guess we can answer Faith's question.
Yeah, let's go in.
But yeah, Faith, do you start Chris Carson? I don't think he's playing in this game, right?
As of an hour before the show, I had not seen whether or not he was playing, but I will say this. They are calling it a chronic neck injury. And if Vig happens to still be in the chat, I would love for Vig to throw a quick comment in. He happens to be an injury expert. But how I take it to be a chronic neck injury is it's something he's dealing with and has been dealing with. So if he plays, I don't think it's going to affect him. The chat is agreeing with Kyra here. It appears
he isn't playing. And even last week, it was kind of where the hell is Chris Carson? You know what I mean? I think that it is affecting him, and that's why we saw a lot more of Alex Collins. We have another start to question that we could hit.
Yeah, let's go ahead. JAC, I know you follow our main show. We primarily focus on DFS here. We're going to throw in this question real quick, but just know we do a lot of things focusing on DFS on this show. So start 2 out of Alex Collins, Cordero Patterson, and Amari Cooper.
Yeah, for me, this is fairly easy. I love Cordell Patterson this week. No Calvin Ridley. So, hey, it's really just Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson out there against the Jets. Really bad really bad secondary. They'll do okay over there. And Amari Cooper. There's no chance that I'm playing Alex Collins over Amari Cooper.
Yeah, even with Chris Carson out, you still have that Rams defense that is stout. Alex Collins is not a guy you want to mess around with. Let's get back into the Thursday small slate while now we have Alfredo back. But I'm going to start with Kyra just because she's 100% ready. We have a segment we call Chalk Burn, and this is a high dollar player that you may not want to play this week. Kyra, you have Tyler Lockett down, and Alfredo happens to have DK Metcalf. So talk to me about the Seattle wide receivers and why we might want to avoid them this week.
Yeah, it's not so much that we want to avoid their wide receivers per se. But when it comes to Tyler Lockett, right now on this slate, like I said, these wide receivers, they're priced high as hell. And once again, we see Tyler Lockett be the wildly inconsistent player that he's been throughout his career. Ramsey hasn't really shadowed much this year, so I don't know if we really see the same issue as last year where Metcalf just got blanketed by Ramsey. He's definitely going to bounce around. Seattle does have the preference to run the ball. So, as much as Tyler Lockett still sees those targets and everything, he's just inconsistent, man. He's always one big play away from costing you a great day, or he's just one. He doesn't get the big plays. There's no blown coverage that he picks up on. The Rams, I really don't see them giving him something like that. I can still see people getting burned by Lockett when he is such a high dollar price here. For him to just hit like his median points that he needs to equal out to that price per dollar, I feel like I would just rather have maybe a DK Metcalf in that situation, or, if you want to, Cooper Kupp is such a high price.
I'm actually going to stop you because you said you'd rather have DK Metcalf, but Alfredo has him as the burn this week. So Alfredo, talk to me about why you may not want to have DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I know that, Kyra, you talked about, Jalen Ramsey is not really shadowing a whole lot this year, but everything kind of changes when we get into these divisional matchups, right? Like you almost, being a Dolphins fan, like you can see it over my shoulder, right? Everything changes every week when the Dolphins play the Patriots. Everything just changes monumentally. And that's something that the Rams could just be changing that this week. And I'm not trying to say that DK Metcalf for sure is going to be the bust here. He's just the guy that I'd rather not put my budget on. He or Tyler Lockett, to be honest. Like they're both. It's kind of just pick your poison here, right? Especially last year, if we go back, we look at when Jalen Ramsey was shadowing DK Metcalf. It was just
not a good game.
It was really, really bad. He shadowed him on 53 of 77 routes. DK ended up with 1 catch on 11 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 targets. It's just awful. Yeah. And that's not the kind of person you want to take your chance on going into a showdown like this.
I like it. Let's talk about low dollar players. So a lot of times to differentiate these lineups and sometimes just to, beat the odds, you have to try to sneak a low dollar player into your lineup. And both of you have very interesting players. Kyra, we already talked about your guy a little bit, but I'm going to start with Alfredo. Talk to me about Travis Homer.
Oh man. Okay. So I really like this. Okay. You kind of touched upon it before, Kyra, this being like a pass heavy game script that it could be, right?
Right.
Listen, with the way everything's trending for Chris Carson, I know he's out now, or he's been labeled as out. Travis Homer is the pass catching back there in Seattle. Alex Collins is like, if you looked up the guy that's going to get you 7 fantasy points every single time he plays, it's Alex Collins. Like that's him. Like he doesn't get involved in the passing game. If the Seahawks really get in close, I don't know if they're using Alex Collins a whole lot. The big kicker for me is the fact that Travis Homer is so cheap on DraftKings. He's $1,000 to put him into your lineup. The pass catching back, you're telling me for $1,000, I'm gonna be able to get probably 4 catches, maybe. Yeah. Maybe he falls into the end zone, something like that. So $1,000, that's kind of what you call the free space.
Absolutely. And then again, with the Carson injury, and I just want to highlight, we do have Alfredo's co-host Vignesh, who is an MD in the chat, and he's really breaking it down for us. That is a true game time decision. A neck injury can go anywhere from being very serious to something minor. So you just want to approach him with caution this week. And that's why both of their low dollar plays are anti Chris Carson. So Kyra, talk to me about Alex Collins, who Alfredo touched on a little bit.
So I think that Alex Collins, like, if I'm going to be honest with you, I do believe that he's going to be super chalky because he is the RB1 heading into this matchup. But at $3,200, like I said, all those guys are so expensive. It can't hurt you to get them in your lineups. Of course, as always, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I couldn't not talk about this guy. I couldn't not talk about him at $4,800, Van Jefferson. I was
a little shocked he wasn't one of your picks for either one of you, but then you brought him up earlier.
So. Yeah, I know. I brought him in, and then I brought him back in again because I really like him this week. I've been trying to fit him into almost all of my DFS builds. He's had 2 touchdowns in the last 4 games. It's the second week in a row he saw at least 6 targets. He has that big playability. He runs those deep routes. He can catch a bomb at any given time. I know a lot of people are big on Deshaun Jackson, and because he is a bigger name, people might lean towards Deshaun Jackson, but Van Jefferson provides you that same amount of upside, and he's running more routes. He's out there for more snaps. He's actually really similarly to Robert Woods right now, as far as like, I believe their snap share. So
Andy's not 40 years old like Deshaun Jackson's.
Yeah, he's young, he could, God forbid in this game. Like I say, I never wish for injury on anybody, but say Cooper Kupp goes out, say Robert Woods goes out at any point, Van Jefferson will skyrocket you in a DFS showdown like this.
Before we move on from Thursday, I'm contractually obligated to get the boss's comment in here. So Josh is refuting. Josh is a Miami guy, loves him some DJ Dallas, and he points out that DJ Dallas is better than Travis Homer and probably Alex Collins, and he's only $600. So that's
he didn't
just
even
me
record
keeping
a
my
snap
job.
last week, Josh. He wasn't even out there.
But being a guy that also lives in Miami, yes, that
go.
is the belief down here that DJ Dallas is better, but it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the coaches do.
So one thing I'm going to throw in as a DFS amateur is with these low dollar players, if you're looking to, you want a piece of Seattle receivers, but you don't want the receivers, as these guys mentioned earlier, going with a low dollar player might let you Russell Wilson into your lineup. That way, if one of the wide receivers goes off, you still have a piece of it. Just a thought. So.
That's why I liked, getting my captain as maybe Van Jefferson or Darrell Henderson, because when I made lineups like that, I was able to, maybe I didn't get all the wide receivers. Well, you can't get all the wide receivers. It's impossible, So I was still able to fit Russ and Matt Stafford and find a way. I mean, even if you don't want to go with someone like Alex Collins, you said he gets those single digit numbers. Take one of the kickers. They're actually decently priced, and they can easily get you the same amount of points, if not more. They can get you 10, 11 points instead. So it's not a terrible idea.
All right, we're going to jump to the main slate. So that was Thursday night. Good luck for everybody tonight. It should be a good game. As I mentioned, we focus on the main slate. So we're going to break everything down by position, and I'm going to ask each of these guys 3 questions about the main slate. So we're going to start with quarterback, and we always start with the negative because, that's the kind of person I am. I don't know. So we're going to start with quarterback. We're going to start with chalk burn, the high dollar quarterback that's going to burn people this week. Kyra, talk to me about the GOAT.
Yeah, I think he's made my chalk burn. I think he made it last week for me, to be honest with you. But it's not
if you did, congratulate. No, he wouldn't have been. He wasn't main slate last week. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. But he was in my mind anyways. I put Tom Brady in my head. But yeah. So this week, my chalk burn is Tom Brady versus Miami. He's the second highest quarterback on both platforms, on DraftKings and FanDuel. And Brady comes back to an ex-divisional opponent versus the Miami Dolphins, and I just really don't see huge upside for Brady in this game, especially not in comparison to the other quarterbacks that I find on the slate for cheaper. He's come back down to earth a little bit. Those first 2 weeks, he had some really good matchups that he was tons of passing touchdowns. He offers you nothing in the rushing department, so that's what he needs to be doing, is scoring touchdowns and gaining yards. That's how he gets you your fantasy points. And this matchup is like polar opposites of each other. You can't run against Tampa Bay, but you can run the hell out of the ball against Miami. You can't really do much damage in the air through versus Miami. They actually are PFF's 4th best coverage grade, but you can do serious damage against Tampa Bay's secondary. I just don't see this being a game or a matchup where Brady has to air the ball out and help you win the week at his price in comparison to everybody else. Like I said, Brady's Brady. He gets you his fantasy points one way, and that's pretty much through touchdowns and passing yards. And I just don't really see a case where that's going to be the type of game that this is. And his touchdowns have came down dramatically the last 2 weeks. He's only had 1 compared to the first 2 weeks where he's had 9. Tougher defensive matchups are just going to limit his upside, in my opinion.
It makes a lot of sense, especially with you mentioning they can be run on. If Brady were to hit 2 early touchdowns and they get out to a big lead, they might just run the clock out at that point.
I could totally see this being a Fournette and Fournette game, or Ronald Jones, because Bruce Arians. So
yeah. Never Ronald Jones.
Never Ronald Jones.
Never.
Alfredo, talk to me about Justin Herbert. This was a little heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, I know. This is so against the grain. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of people really upset because
very much against my weekly rankings. So I'm interested.
How dare I besmirch the name of Justin Herbert? It's less about him and just more about his opponent, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns just simply aren't allowing a lot of points against the offenses. They're not allowing a lot of pass yards either. They're 5th in points allowed, 3rd in pass yards allowed. Justin Herbert has been good, but I haven't seen him totally be great. He did have the one game where he was out of his mind, but other than that, he's just been pretty good. Another guy who has been also pretty good throughout the season, Kirk Cousins. He went up against Cleveland last week, finished with 203, 1-1. He managed just only throw one touchdown after such a hot start, just about 11 points on DraftKings. For the money that you're having to spend on Justin Herbert, I'm not liking what the outlook.
I love it. Well, if we're not playing those guys, talk to me about Kyra. Did you want to add something? I'm sorry.
No, yeah. I think that what's happening with Justin Herbert is that his defense has been so much better that he's not having to be the guy he was last year, where he's just airing that ball out, those big plays. Yeah, like that deep ball was huge for him last year, and he needed to do it. So now he's just able to play good football, and he's a great quarterback, but sometimes it doesn't, real world football and fantasy football bring about two different things, and that's what people need to understand.
It's amazing how much better a defense can look when Derwin James doesn't get hurt in week 1.
Yeah, the Chargers have, knock on wood, not too many crazy injuries for them thus far.
Exactly. Well, if we're avoiding Brady and Herbert, Alfredo, who is your favorite quarterback play of the week?
All right, so I'm loving all the nicknames for him so far, and it's Cam Darnold, okay, or Konami Sammy. I've been hearing too. Like, come on, I love it. I love it. Sam Darnold going up against the Eagles. He's 6,600 on DraftKings right now. He's accounted for 10 touchdowns in his 4 weeks, 5 of them being on the ground. We all know that stat, right? That he's leading the league in rushing touchdowns. But on top of that, he's had 300 or more passing yards in each of the last 3 games. So you can even get a bonus there. The Eagles have given up 8 passing touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. And I mean, let's look at what they've been doing, right? They've been really bad against quarterbacks recently. That offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, Joe Brady, is watching that, and he's dialing up those big plays to make sure, because the Eagles are one of those teams that if Jalen Hurts has himself a big game, they're going to score a lot of points.
Yep.
And then the Panthers need to be able to match that. So I wouldn't be surprised Sam Darnold has himself another great game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
I love it. I'm all aboard the Darnold train. For those here who happen to focus on redraft, he's available in more than 50% of leagues on most platforms. Go sign Sam Darnold. He should not be out there right now. But Kyra, talk to me about your favorite play this week.
Yeah, so mine's another really underwhelming name for people, as much as Sam Darnold is for some.
These are names people are afraid of.
It is. It's people that they're still like, I don't know yet. It's still too soon for me to be sure of myself. Sam Darnold had his Gase effect finally unleashed off of him. That's nice.
Yes.
But my pick this week is going to be Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes versus the Dallas Cowboys this week. He's actually our fantasy quarterback 6 on the year. They have the second highest over/under
behind Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's only by a small decimal of a point too. So yeah, I mean, hey, this is what it is, guys. This is they're literally nearly top 5 quarterbacks. So as much as it pains me to make this comp as well, while also complimenting the Dallas Cowboys, because I am a big Eagles fan.
For you all together.
This whole thing just. But anyways. The way that the Cowboys remind me of is similar to the Chiefs, where they just have this powerhouse of an offense that you have to keep up with every game. So the opposing quarterbacks have to do that same thing. They have to keep up with Dallas's powerhouse of an offense. Every opponent they play is just going to need to throw the ball. They're just going to score too many points that this is what it's going to be. And it's honestly showed in the amount of attempts that the opposing quarterbacks have played against them. Brady had 50 attempts, Herbert had 41, Hurts 39, and Darnold 39 attempts. So you have to throw the ball against Dallas if you want to win these games. They're actually not so bad against the run. It's really their secondary that has come along recently, but still beatable. They're not world beaters quite yet. We're not going to give them that kind of credit.
Absolutely.
But Jones has been playing extremely well, and he's going to have plenty of opportunity in this game to give you return on value on fantasy points at the prices that he's at this week. He has top 5 upside, and he's QB 12 on DraftKings, QB 9 on FanDuel. I could easily see him being able to have a 300-plus yard game. Obviously, hopefully a few touchdowns. Dallas has given up on average of 2 a game. And he's scored at least 30 fantasy points in road games so far this year. So I'm pretty confident that Daniel Jones could return value at his respective prices.
There you go. And for what it's worth, if you saw my stream of the week video this morning, these guys are 1 and 2 on my stream of the week rankings at quarterback. But now it's time for our first disagreement of the show. And I don't mean between these two. Kyra, talk to me about your favorite low dollar play.
Oh man, I've been excited about this one. I hope it's not just me praying for it to just be happening finally. But no, it's not. This could be a good spot here. Okay. So my deep sea dive this week is going to be Trey Lance versus the Cardinals. Obviously, this is a very dependent situation on if Jimmy J is okay to start, or if they feel that he's good to go, then you can't play Lance. Obviously, we'll just scrap this whole idea. But people, we have to realize something. Trey Lance played half the snaps last week and finished as a QB 13 in week 4. He scored 20 plus points depending on what your format and scoring was. And I understand that people want to say, oh, but most of his yards came on the busted coverage to Deebo. Oh, did you watch the game? He looks terrible. He's not ready. But I really don't care. Points are points. Whether he accrued them looking terrible or he caught, them in busted coverage and threw a bomb to Deebo Samuel. Lance's skill set is that he has a big arm, big playability, with rushing upside. And I'm sorry, I just don't care if he's ready or not. It provides fantasy gold. Okay, we see it with Jalen Hurts. We saw it with him. He wasn't ready when he first started, and he still put up really good fantasy finishes when he just got thrown into the Wolves. He got thrown into the Saints game, a bad matchup, and was still able to do it. Oh, good. I hope he's not starting.
Oh, there we go, Vig.
Dr. Vig has entered into the chat and let us know that it appears Jimmy G will not be playing this week. So everything she's saying about Lance, you can pay attention to.
Yes, perfect. And we just don't even know his ceiling yet. There's no roof for his ceiling, and the upside is endless. He's the ideal quarterback could win you this entire week at such a cheap freaking price. He's a QB 15 on DraftKings, QB 16 on FanDuel. Only $5,700 and $6,900, super dirt cheap. And just like Dallas and Daniel Jones' situation, Trey Lance is going to need to keep up with Arizona's high-powered offense. They've got the same thing going on over there. So if he's starting, I love Lance as a paydown quarterback this week, and I'm very hopeful that he's just able to do this. I understand it's risky putting out a rookie out there. It is, I know, and it's a risk, but you don't win anything by not taking risks. So
I get it. I don't see it this week. I don't think Arizona will be surprised by him. So we're just going to leave it at that. We disagree. We'll talk about it more next week when I'm right. But let's move on to Alfredo's paydown quarterback. Your deep sea dive at the QB position.
All right. So wait, before I get into mine, I'm not going to lie.
You're going to co-sign.
Kyra, you stole because that was going to be my quarterback. Okay. On our recent episode of the Pretend GM, we were talking about him because Trey Lance is probably going to have to at least drop back 36, 40 times in this game. That's on average. The quarterbacks that go up against Arizona Cardinals are doing 36 pass attempts. Now let's talk about the design runs. Trey Lance is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And to keep up with the Cardinals, just like you said, I love it. So since you stole my quarterback, I'm going to just Jacques Cousteau this, and I'm going to dive even deeper. All right.
Let's dive.
Jacoby Brissett. Okay, I know it's wild, it's crazy, but if you're gonna punt at quarterback, just punt hard. Okay, Jacoby Brissett going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's 5,200 on DraftKings. Over the last couple weeks, the Bucs have given up 618 passing yards and 6 passing touchdowns. Do the quick math. That's over 300 yards a game and 3 passing touchdowns a game. I know Jacoby Brissett's not a world beater. No one's expecting him to be that, but he's also a guy that has the ability to rush for a touchdown as well. Miami, I expect him to be playing from behind all game long.
Yes.
What Tom Brady does, and especially after this last game, he is upset at that horrible performance. Yeah, okay, horrible performance, whatever. It was a pretty bad performance for him and the Bucs. So what does he do? He comes down to Miami and just takes it out on the Dolphins. I don't even know if it's a home game. Either way, he's going to take it out on the Dolphins.
I'm Tampa, I believe, but regardless.
Either way, it doesn't matter where the game's going to be. Tom Brady's going to spank the Dolphins. Jacoby Brissett's going to have to pass a lot to keep up with them. So I really like him as the punt play at the quarterback position.
I like it. Yeah. So I love it, guys. We're going to just quickly recap quarterback. You are avoiding Tom Brady and Justin Herbert, though there might be a little disagreement there, but Tom Brady and Justin Herbert. You are looking for Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. And then if you're diving deep, you're looking for Trey Lance and Jacoby Brissett. So we're going to jump over to running back. We start the same way, chalk burn, negative. So Alfredo, let's start with you. Talk to me about a high dollar running back who could burn managers this week.
Yeah, here's a name that we're not used to saying that he could burn you, and it's Alvin Kamara. The New Orleans Saints. He's going up against the Washington football team. Still weird. They don't have a team name, but Washington football team. He's 8,600 on DraftKings. He's just been so underwhelming this year, and it's because he just doesn't have his normal identity. He's only had one game of 20-plus points this season. Not what you expect from a guy that is so expensive to play in the main slate. He's only got 10 receptions on the season, including last week, a goose egg. I mean, he's behind guys like Leonard Fournette, Jeremy McNichols, Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, like everyone is catching more passes than Alvin Kamara. Dude, it's crazy. So for my main slate, I'm not touching Alvin Kamara with a 10-foot pole.
Yep. And then talk about pass catching running backs that we're avoiding. Kyra, you're avoiding Austin Ekeler.
I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but I totally agree with Alfredo there. Alvin Kamara has been gross, especially without getting those receptions. His bread and butter, like, it's just sucked. But so Austin Ekeler, I know that he's a fan favorite with his fantasy football work that he does, and it's fun and it's cool, and I love him for it. Don't get me wrong, he's been on absolute freaking fire lately, but I'm a little bit hesitant of his matchup this week. We have a game with two awesome defenses, first of all, 48.5 over under, but Cleveland's defense has been tremendous. And I know that we kind of touched on that a little bit before, but last week they shut down Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, no touchdown. Week 3, Montgomery was limited to 34 yards on 10 carries, no touchdown. Week 2 was Houston, and, as per usual, nothing happened there. And lastly, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, week 1, 14 carries, 43 yards. Yeah. They are up there in the upper echelon of rush defenses. They're actually the top 3 on the year, allowing only 66.5 yards on the ground a game. Only 1 rushing touchdown this year, and that was to Tyrod freaking Taylor. Very, very random, but that's what happened.
Then they knocked him out of the game after he did it. So.
yeah, so you don't score on them, okay?
That's right. They don't allow it.
They will take your ass out. But they're the 31st best fantasy team against opposing running backs. So there's 32 teams. So 31's pretty damn good. Yeah. And so that's why I'm going to fade Ekeler in this game.
I say that's rough, but you both make great points, and I think you both are right on that. Favorite play of the week. I don't know that I've ever seen 2 chalk names before. Usually you guys try to find more budget-friendly names. I love both names. Don't get me wrong. It's just very weird for me to see these names here. So, Kyra, talk to me about your love of the Dallas Cowboys tonight, Ezekiel Elliott.
I know. This is like the worst year for me.
I was going to say, for those who are new to the show, Kyra, huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. So she's now talking up Daniel Jones and Ezekiel Elliott in the same show.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'm not touching on any football team today. So I'll spare myself that one. And I'm not even talking about any Eagles today. So let's see.
There you go.
Way out of character for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually a little confused why Ezekiel Elliott, he's chalky, but he's not
very expensive.
Right. The way that I feel like he should be. And I don't know if DraftKings is drunk or I don't know who's doing this, but I mean, he's the RB8. Like what? I mean, they must have just been paying attention to Zeke the last only the last time they checked on Zeke was maybe week 1 versus Tampa Bay, and everyone was freaking out oh my God, what are we going to do with Zeke? He's washed. He's not going to be getting good. You know what I mean? But let's be realistic. Nobody's been good against Tampa. They're just matchup proof for the most part. I don't know that anybody's good against them. And Pollard has not dethroned Ezekiel Elliott yet, so everyone can relax. But yeah, I mean, he's been killing it the last 2 weeks. And Prescott's attempts have actually been able to come down because Zeke is looking so good. He's been looking like prime Zeke and super productive. He had 16 points versus the Los Angeles Chargers, very good defense. He had 25 versus Philly, not that great of a rushing defense. And he had 20 versus Carolina, who is a decent run defense. Yeah. So he's looking like he's back to normal RB1 status, Ezekiel Elliott, nothing to worry about. Now, this week he's going up against New York Giants. They allowed the 12th most points per game to opposing running backs. And like I said, Zeke should be priced as a top 5 back, so you should absolutely take advantage of him while he's priced at RB8. I mean, you take advantage of him being priced at RB6 because I think that he could easily fit into the RB3 role this week below, Henry and McCaffrey and even, Dalvin Cook, so maybe the 4th. But yeah, he's had a touchdown in every game except for that Tampa game. He averages 16 plus carries a game, 309 rushing yards over the last three weeks. I think he's a super safe choice with a lot of upside.
And then Alfredo, I don't even know how much needs to be said about yours, but talk to me a little bit about King Henry.
Listen, paying up for Derrick Henry this week on DraftKings, I liken it to paying for first class on an international flight where you got the beds, that's the seats that turn into beds. It's so expensive, but in this case, it's worth it. I just don't. This is the chalkiest of chalk plays, he's having an unprecedented receiving year, which is just so weird for him. He's got 4 more catches than Alvin Kamara, by the way. He's at 14 already on the year. wild. He's had 30 plus touches in his last 3 games. 30 or more touches in each of those games. Just wild. So the volume is there. The Titans are likely still going to be without Julio Jones. AJ Brown might play. We're seeing reports that he might be able to come out there.
There
with
were videos
hamstring.
today of him looking pretty good. So
I mean, it is still a so we don't know how much of a factor he's going to be when he's out there. He could just be a decoy. But I mean, this is one of those games, especially going up against the Jags. Derrick Henry could hit 40 touches. And if that's the case, I mean, he's just worth the money.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Like I said, I don't know how much we need to explain. So let's jump into the deep sea dives. Alfredo, talk to me about your cheap running back this week.
Yeah, I'm back into that Miami and Tampa Bay.
I was going to say, this makes a lot of sense.
Leonard Fournette against the Miami Dolphins. He's only 5,200 on DraftKings. I'm actually surprised that he's still just so low because, I mean, he is the starting running back on an offense that, when it wants to be, can be pretty prolific. They're going up against such a bad Miami run defense. They're 26th against opposing fantasy running backs. They give up an average of 137 rush yards per game. Jonathan Taylor just had his way with them. Yeah. I mean, he even had a really long play called back on a penalty last week. I was at that game and saw it. I was like, thank God. But, I mean, just teams run the ball as second most against Miami because they know they can. This has been a problem with Miami forever. And they've also been really bad at stopping pass catching running backs. And with that being said, Leonard Fournette, he's already got 15 catches, one more than Derrick Henry. If we keep doing the math here, right? He's on pace for 60 catches this season. Leonard Fournette to me is just such a nice value play this week.
Absolutely. And Kyra, I think you're going to say a lot about the pass catching as well with your deep sea dive for the week.
Yeah, absolutely. My deep sea dive this week is going to be DeAndre Swift versus the Vikings. And I really credit his cheap price tag this week. And I know he's not a super deep sea dive, but to me, he was, because I'm scrolling, and I see DeAndre Swift here. I'm like, okay, but this is mostly a credit to his up and down season thus far. Yeah. But we can look at the RB7 on the year here a couple different ways. The Lions need to just realize that Swift is their best offensive weapon and playmaker, and they need to just keep him involved the entire game. Dan Campbell finesse.
There we go.
Yeah, you know me. My stutter comes in every now and again.
You're fine.
Dan Campbell, he finessed all of us last week by saying that he was going to get DeAndre Swift more involved. You know, that old trick, that old coach speak. I love it, you know. But he ended up only getting 8 rushing attempts and 4 receptions. So cool on that.
He didn't bite enough kneecaps. That's what it was.
Yeah, no, he's got to start getting a little bit crazier out there so that Dan Campbell will put him in more. He's no Jamal Williams, I guess. But it seems that, you know, if we go with the trend here, then jokingly, every other week, DeAndre Swift goes off for 20 plus points. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. You know, that's just me really noticing something. But this matchup is awesome for Swift this week. He goes up against the Minnesota Vikings. There's a 49.5 over under here. Let's keep in mind he is one of the biggest majorities in that Lions offense. He's leading the Lions in touches with 64 of them. You just can't keep down a talent like DeAndre Swift for a long time. He is a really good player. He was a really good player coming out of the draft. I'm shooting for his upside here in this one at a cheap price. The Vikings have allowed the 11th most points to running backs and also the 11th most points to wide receiver. We know DeAndre Swift is a dual threat in that area. I could easily see him having a great bounce back spot this week. Could easily put you up 20 plus points. And at RB13, RB16, he should absolutely return value for you there.
Sounds great, guys. I think that was a great segment with running backs. I'm just going to recap. You are avoiding Austin Ekeler and Alvin Kamara because they won't catch passes. You are playing Ezekiel Elliott and Derrick Henry, especially Derrick Henry, the new best pass-catching running back in the NFL, the benchmark. And then if you're diving deep, you're looking for DeAndre Swift and Leonard Fournette. We're going to jump to wide receiver. I've heard enough of Kyra for right now. Talk to me about your chalk burn. I think he goes a little bit with your quarterback, Alfredo.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mike Williams going up against the Cleveland Browns. He's 7,200 on DraftKings, and just at that cost, it's just way too much for me. This is not so much about not necessarily believing in the talent of Mike Williams or even the Browns defense, just trying to be a little bit more risk averse, a guy that, you know, just came off a really bad performance, putting that much money on him. So, I mean, you could just copy paste everything I said about Justin Herbert before. You know, Browns 5th in points allowed, 3rd in pass yards allowed. The thing is with Mike Williams now is let's dive even a little bit deeper on it for his matchup. He's likely to see some Denzel Ward. I know he goes, you know, into the slot. He'll come back outside and work on the perimeter versus Mike Williams. But the Cleveland secondary is actually really underrated. They've only given up 3 touchdowns all season to wide receivers. I mean, so they already don't allow a lot of touchdowns, but it's even less to wide receivers. Those 3 wide receivers were Tyreek Hill, Brandon Cooks, Justin Jefferson. So all really talented guys. Not saying Mike Williams can't do it, but I'd rather
But he's not on that
put my
tier.
eggs in that basket.
Yeah, way better options at that top. I mean, he's in the top tier echelon of wide receivers this week. You know, his early season performance has plummeted him right to the top.
Exactly.
Or not plummeted, skyrocketed him right to the top. So I understand that call for sure.
But it's a plummet this week. Kyra, talk to me about your guy. Everybody's counting on your guy. Yeah, well, talk to me about your guy. Everyone's talking about him bouncing back this week, and you don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was my chalk burn last week as well, and with good reason.
And you were right, so.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I could easily eat the chalk on this one too. I could eat my words here, but you know, he's my familiar face with the chalk burn, and I haven't been wrong about it. So he stays priced as if he should put up top 3 wide receiver production. You know, you haven't really seen his price budge very much. He's the wide receiver 3 on DraftKings, wide receiver 7 on FanDuel. So a little bit of a better value. I don't necessarily mind him on FanDuel. He's just been super underwhelming over the last 2 weeks, and he hasn't reached 100 yards yet this season.
I don't think we've said his name yet. I'm just going to interrupt. We're talking about DeAndre Hopkins for the Cardinals. No, you're fine.
I was just thinking to myself, I was like, maybe I didn't hear it.
I was seeing if people could guess who the hell I'm talking about.
I literally was like, I think she's starting off with that coy game where we guess the player's name, and I'm like, she's still going. I have to say something.
No, it's me.
No, you're fine, Kyra. But DeAndre Hopkins is who she's
recover my fumbles over there, Ryan, please.
There you go.
But so he hasn't reached 100 yards yet this season. He is also dealing with bruised ribs, and that isn't some minor injury. That shit hurts. I mean, I've had bruised ribs. I know I'm not a football player or anything like that, but I can't imagine being a football player out there trying to stretch my body, catch balls, get tackled. I mean, it's capping his upside from doing so well and being DeAndre Hopkins that we know. And Kyler Murray spreading the ball, it hasn't helped him really much either. Can he have a great game this week going against San Fran? Yes, of course. He absolutely can. But I just rather play like a different wide receiver in a different matchup. That's I have someone actually that I have listed that's $500 less on DraftKings that I would prefer over him.
I was going to say, maybe not a different matchup, maybe just the other side of the field.
Same matchup.
Real quick, Josh wants to chime in. Carson was officially ruled out tonight for anybody who was looking at that. Perfect. Or if you need to go fix your lineups, but you shouldn't have been starting him anyway. So, Kyra, as I mentioned, your favorite play comes from this same matchup. So talk to me about Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, Deebo Samuel, it's just hard not to love Deebo right now. He's averaged at least 10 targets a game. He has 3 touchdowns, 2 games over 150 yards. He's on the field for over 89% of the snaps. He has the most receiving yards in the NFL. He's a wide receiver 3 in PPR. He is the clear focal point in this offense over George Kittle and most definitely over Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, give me that big playability with Lance because that's exactly what Deebo Samuel is. He's a big play kind of dude. And in this game, they should absolutely be trailing. So I could see that them needing to use him a lot. And they always look to him in those times of need. They're just trying to get him the ball because he can create those big plays. The Cardinals give up the 7th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. His bump up in FanDuel kind of sucks to me, but he's a great value still at wide receiver 7. I like him again this week. I'm not really worried about the rookie quarterback situation. Or maybe I'd be lying a little bit to say that I'm not, but Lance knows Samuel is his safety valve. So I would have to say if he's trying to kick himself out of a situation, I could see him trying to get the ball to Samuel, and he's someone who can make and create.
Yeah. As someone who was down on Lance, I do want to say I'm actually not worried about Samuel because the one thing you guys both hit on is they're likely to be playing from behind in this game, and he's going to lean on Samuel. We could see another 13 target game pretty easily for Deebo Samuel, but this might be a first for the show. Kyra's given me 2 before, but Alfredo is giving us 3. Now, I doubt you're advocating to play all 3 in a single lineup, but talk to me about your favorite receivers.
Yeah, I initially wrote this as any Bengals wide receiver. And then on my own notes over here, I changed it just to be as specific as I can.
Okay, you have somebody then.
Yeah, so Jamar Chase for me is the guy. He's 5,800 on DraftKings. Honestly, Kyra, you stole my guy. You stole Deebo. That's who I was going to go with.
She gets into the shoot first because she knows. So.
I know. I can't let anybody steal from me because I'm like, fuck.
But you know what? I'm glad that I had to make this move over because it had me, really look up everything going on with Jamar Chase and going up with this matchup because people are probably going to shy away from Jamar Chase, and the Bengals wide receivers may not be as chalky as we think, even though they're all super talented and that passing game is really, really good. But when you go and you look at these guys in the app, you're going to see that the Packers are 5th against receivers. But that was with Jair Alexander. There is no more Jair Alexander. He is out with a shoulder injury, may even be done for the season.
Big deal.
Jamar Chase, he had career highs in receptions and targets last week. The Bengals are, this is a theme of the show, right? Yeah. Offenses having to keep up with other offenses, and the Bengals are going to have to keep up with Aaron Rodgers. There's no Joe Mixon. Chris Evans and Samaje Perine can only catch so many passes. Even with T. Higgins being back, it's his first game back from injury. I'm all aboard Jamar Chase as a great play this week.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites as well. If you had stolen Deebo off me, honestly, that's the route I would have gone.
That's fine. We can just trade right now.
Yeah, we'll swap it. We'll swap it. Yeah.
And the one thing I'll throw out is the Packers have not had a good pass rush either. So without corners and a pass rush, the Bengals may be able to do just about whatever they want.
You can definitely feast on this. And when like Kevin King is like your best corner out there, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble.
Well, both of your deep sea dives at wide receiver are chef's kiss, in my opinion. I love both of them. Kyra, talk to me about Viska.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about Laviska Shenault. I mean, we got to see him look good finally last week. Since week 1, I believe he had an okay game in week 1, but he looked really good last week when, nobody wants a victory lap injuries. I don't ever want to condone them, but, realistically, the Chark injury may have just unlocked Laviska Shenault in this Jaguar offense. And this is a great matchup for fantasy points on all sides of the ball, whether it comes from the Jaguars or the Titans. This could be just a pure fantasy merry-go-round, to be honest. 48.5 over-under could easily hit the over. Tennessee gives up the absolute most points to to opposing wide receivers. Viska, he's the wide receiver 43 on DraftKings and the wide receiver 37 on FanDuel. So he's way the hell down there. Last week, he was the wide receiver 20 versus Cincinnati, who's a tougher matchup. He's also only second in targets, just behind Marvin Jones. He has Viska has 28, Marvin Jones has 31. So they're not as far off as they may seem. I know a lot of people think Marvin Jones is the main guy there, and he is technically, but I think that Viska could find himself a nice role. He's been averaging 7 targets a week. He hasn't got his touchdown yet. I'm sure that's soon to come. And I bet after this week that Laviska's price goes up and people start paying attention because he is super talented. And I hope that Dirty Bird, Urban Meyer, decides to use him and his abilities. He can definitely beat his wide receiver 43 and 37 price tag. Yeah, Urban freaking Meyer, man.
Oh, Herb.
Just a dirty old man. What are you going to do?
Exactly. Let's just get away from that topic as quickly as possible. And Alfredo, I'm not even going to accuse you of being a homer here because I love him so much.
It's okay, you can.
No, but I love him. So please talk to me about Jalen Waddle.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love Jalen Waddle. He was my number 2 rookie wide receiver coming out of this class. Oddly enough, ahead of Devontae Smith, that a lot of people had him higher. Kira, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to talk ill of the Eagles. My bad.
No, there's nothing wrong with Devontae. I get it. Waddle's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Waddle, he's really similarly priced to Laviska Shenault. They're both around that 4,800 range on DraftKings. We're talking about it again. Miami's going to have to keep up with Tampa Bay's scoring. The Bucs are 31st against fantasy wide receivers. That's really bad. All right. They're giving up the most passing yards in the league. Carlton Davis, now one of their better corners, has been placed on IR. They really don't have much there. I mean, Richard Sherman was on his couch a week and a half ago. He was never already that fast of a corner anyways. So you're talking about a guy, Jalen Waddle, who is going to be getting a lot of opportunities this week. Miami just placed Will Fuller on IR. They just traded Jakeem Grant to Chicago for a 6th-round pick. Jakeem Grant, equally as valuable as Stephon Gilmore. Who would have thought that? And Devontae Parker even has been limited with a shoulder injury. So there's a good chance that Jalen Waddle might be the only legit starting wide receiver out there for Miami going up against a horrible secondary in Tampa.
Yeah. All right. Let's recap these wide receivers. One quick thing I want to throw out for the chat, seeing some new names. We appreciate every single one of you. This specific show focuses on DFS. So I will try to answer your questions in the chat. If it's a DFS question, I will get these guys to answer it. If you're looking for more start-sit advice, Club Fantasy every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern will run a live start-sit show that's strictly based around your questions. So just recapping the wide receivers. You are avoiding DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Williams. You are playing Deebo Samuel and any Bengals wide receiver, but specifically Jamar Chase. And if you're diving deep, you need to fill out the back end of that roster: Laviska Shenault, Jalen Waddle. We're going to move over to tight end. We're going to start with the chalk burn, the high dollar guys who are going to burn you. Both of these guys make perfect sense based on things we've talked about earlier today. But Kyra, talk to me about George Kittle.
Yeah, so obviously my chalk burn is going to be George Kittle this week. He's playing against the Cardinals, and I might eat my words with this matchup too on a few of these players actually in these matchups. But since we have to pick some chalk, I'm just going to go off here with Kittle right now. I understand people are stuck with a name sometimes, and you drafted him, he's high draft capital, but so far he's tight end 10 on the year, and that sucks. That's annoying if you spend a 3rd round pick on George Kittle. The targets are there, but the production just hasn't been. It's really just been the Deebo Samuel show. As far as targets go, Samuel has 43, Kittle is all the way down there at 28 in comparison. I know this is a little bit contradicting to what I said, but he does have a rookie quarterback debuting this week. It's his first start. We didn't see him target nearly like he did Samuel. Cardinals defense has allowed only 93 yards and not one single touchdown to the tight end position yet. Just not the best spot for Kittle at his price right now. He's just not playing as the tight end too. That's where he's valued at.
And that point against Arizona's defense is a point that needs to be taken, because over the last 2 years, they've been one of the worst defenses against the tight end, but they've very much cleaned that up. So don't go in with that wrong mindset anymore.
Yeah. Years they were the worst tight end. We'd pick on them. We'd go for that defense, but please, anymore, it's just not the same idea.
Yep. And Alfredo, yours is another guy who makes perfect sense, and there's a good chance people aren't even going to have to worry about getting burned by him this week. It's starting to look like. But talk to me about TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, TJ Hawkinson, he's 5,500 on DK. And if you're like me, I drafted him in the Scott Fishbowl thinking I had unlocked the golden gun. Like this was going to be my guy. And it started off great. And then everything got really underwhelming.
TJ Hawkinson's story starts off great every season, but we won't get into that right now.
Always. And it's just gotten so underwhelming, not just for him, but for the Lions. You never really know what to expect. Like you mentioned, Ryan, TJ Hawkinson, he may not even play this week. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He was limited today. He's got a knee injury that's popped up out of nowhere. Yeah. But let's just even look at what his previous games have been. 6 catches on 10 targets over the last 2 games. It's not great. Like, it's just not for the price that you have to pay up to get him at the tight end position. The volume just isn't there. Jared Goff is a super underwhelming quarterback. Only 4 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks, which, I mean, it's not horrible, but like is it good? Like, it's just barely good. I'd just rather not spend the money on TJ Hawkins.
And the touchdowns keep finding their way into weird people's hands. Khalif Raymond.
I'm learning their receivers as the touchdowns happen.
There you go. Exactly. We all are. They're probably Jared Goff is also learning them as the touchdowns happen. I do want to give another shout out to Dr. Vig, who mentioned George Kittle missed practice again today. So Hawkinson and Kittle missing practice. Tight end's not a position you really want to gamble with to begin with, especially with the names we're about to give here. I think Kyra may have stole Alfredo's name, so I'm going to let Alfredo go first. So go ahead, Alfredo, on your favorite play at tight end.
No, I can only put so many Miami Dolphins into the show sheet here.
We had to talk to Kyra about that after week 1 because it was just all Eagles.
I always started with Jalen Hurts. It was impossible not to. So.
Exactly. No, that's fine, though. Talk to me about Dalton Schultz.
But this same guy, we just recently talked about him on the Pretend GM podcast, and it's Dalton Schultz. Listen, guys, we got to just start putting some respect on Dalton Schultz's name, please. Like, he's just been going out there every single week and getting you roughly 6 catches and like a touchdown every single week. Like, the guy's just not only been good, but been consistent. I mean, he's
playing like one.
Yeah, he really is. He's going up against the Giants this week. You look at what Kyle Pitts was able to do against the Giants. He got targeted 9 times. So that middle of the field, that area for the tight end is going to be open for Dalton Schultz. Giants are 25th against tight ends, so obviously they're not very good. And like I said, 6 receptions in 3 out of 4 games this season. He's always a threat to score a touchdown, maybe even multiple touchdowns. And at his price, I mean, to be like nearly $1,000 cheaper than a guy like TJ Hawkinson. Oh, it's $1,100 cheaper than a guy like TJ Hawkinson. Yeah, I'll take that all day.
And he practiced. I'm going to throw out real quick for all of my fellow Blake Jarwin truthers. We're the ones who are doubting Dalton Schultz. It's time to move on.
It ain't happening.
It's not happening.
It's true.
It was brought up before the season. Why would they go back to Jarwin when Schultz played so well? And it appears that Dallas feels that exact same way. But Kyra, I love your favorite play at tight end as well. And it kind of goes with the love for Waddle, because when we see Brissett lock onto players, he locks onto two specific players. And if it's not Jalen Waddle, it's Mike Gesicki.
It's for sure Mike Gesicki. I'm trying to get him in all of my DraftKings and FanDuel lineups. He's someone I really like this week. He's given us tight end 1 production ever since Jacoby Brissett took over. And he saw his snap percentage usage just climb up. He's now up into the high 60s. Over the last 2 weeks, he's been targeted nearly almost 20 freaking times. He's been 18 targets, 15 catches, 143 yards, and a touchdown. So he's scored at least 16 points in each of those weeks. Pretty damn good for a tight end. Now he gets a soft as butter Tampa secondary against tight ends. I hate to pick on him, but I mean, this is how we do things.
You would think they would learn covering Gronk in practice every week, but apparently
yeah, right.
You
know
out,
what I mean?
So.
I guess they're not getting the practice since he's got his ribs.
That must be it.
OJ Howard's not putting up the production before. But yeah, they've given up the ninth most fantasy points per game to tight ends, and they've allowed 3 touchdowns to tight ends over their past 2 games. He's also finished as a top 10 tight end both of the last 2 weeks. And Tampa is the only team who has yet to not give up a tight end 12 finish to tight ends this season. So he's fairly safe, I would have to say so. And he's easily my favorite option this week at tight end position.
That's perfect. And we're just going to stick with you on the deep sea dive. Apparently you are now just a fan of the entire NFC East besides the Philadelphia Eagles.
I know.
Favorite tight end deep sea dive is Engram.
It's awful. And I don't know how many times Evan Engram is going to get me with this shit. He's always, I swear he has it out for me, a vendetta or something.
I'm pretty sure every episode so far you've mentioned that you like to be hurt, you don't learn your lesson, and it continues.
I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to Evan Engram, because he made a ton of my articles last year. I believed in him. It's because he gets all these freaking targets and chances and opportunities that he just fools me with. But down in the murky deep sea dive tight end waters with all the other creatures, I mean, I guess you could do much worse than Evan Engram. He's had 6 targets over the last 2 weeks. We possibly don't have Sterling Shepard. There might be no Darius Slayton. So in a game where New York does have to keep pace with the Cowboys, who give up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends, Evan Engram, I'm telling you here, this is me telling you now, this is your last chance with me. I will not, I swear, I vow
laying it down
in another podcast, another article. Please, God, if you do not do anything with the opportunities that Daniel Jones just relentlessly gives you, then that's it.
Daniel Jones clearly likes to be hurt as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, he was a freak of an athlete coming out. I just don't understand what the fuck happened, but he always gets my hopes up. But if I'm going to deep sea dive for him, it's not so bad at his price tag.
There we go. Alfredo, you're going to not really close out the show. We're going to throw defense in here at the very end, but you're going to talk to us about our last player, a name that a lot of people probably don't know and probably don't know where he plays, but there's a reason for that. So,
yeah, I mean, Kyra, if you went low, like I am in the center of the earth going deep dive for this tight end, because Ricky Seals-Jones, right? Like that is, if people thought that Austin Ekeler, if people thought that Austin Ekeler was not a household name, Ricky Seals-Jones is definitely not a household name. Right? He's got 3 of them.
He may not be a household name in the Seals or Jones houses.
Yeah, all three names don't make it. Ricky, Seals, or Jones.
No, I mean, so with Ricky Seals-Jones, he's this guy that he's always that backup tight end that comes in when the guy in front of him gets hurt. And he always ends up having that 1 week where he's really, really good. And we talk about this every year and we say, oh, is he finally a thing? And it's like, no, he's not a thing. But this 1 week could be the week that he just plays really well. DraftKings is still not up to date on his price, especially with what's going on with the Washington football team. Yeah. He's only $2,500. Like he's just basically free. He's the same price as Irv Smith Jr., who's been on IR since before the season.
Yeah, I love how DraftKings does that.
It makes absolutely 0 sense. Okay, he played 93% of the snaps after Logan Thomas went out. You've got Terry McLaurin's likely going to be shadowed by Marshawn Lattimore throughout that game. The Saints have also been pretty good against running backs as well. So how many targets does that really leave for Ricky Seals-Jones, and Taylor Heineke, who has shown that he likes the tight end position when throwing to Logan Thomas? So Ricky Seals-Jones is I'm not saying he's going to go out there and ball out, but he's a really good punt at the tight end spot.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And he is, like you brought up, he's the backup in Washington who just lost Logan Thomas. So with tight end, we are avoiding George Kittle and TJ Hawkinson. We are playing Mike Gesicki and Dalton Schultz. Great plays. And if we're diving deep, I hate both of these names, but they could have production this week. Evan Engram and Ricky Seals-Jones. Guys, we're up against it. I'm not going to let you talk defense this week, but I'm going to let you in your own voice give me the names. We do David and Goliath for defense. We're going to give you one high dollar play if you have too much money left over, one low dollar play if you just need to stick someone in. So Kyra, give me 2 names.
Okay, so my first one is going to be my Goliath, which is clearly the Patriots versus the Houston Texans. No real summary needed.
Yep.
And then obviously if you're playing Trey Lance or Deebo Samuel, I don't want you to stick these people in here, but I would take the Cardinals for my low dollar amount versus San Francisco.
Perfect. Alfredo, same deal.
Yeah, my Goliath is going to be the Broncos, who have just been great all year, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers and Big Ben, who can't move. He consistently gets sacked. He's throwing picks. And then my David is going to be the Chargers. They're still pretty cheap considering what they did on Monday Night Football, going up against the Browns. Baker Mayfield looked awful.
And
Either
is
one's
hurt.
good.
Yeah, I like it. Guys, that's it. We did it. You got about an hour and 20 minutes till kickoff, so make sure you go set those showdown lineups. If you need a recap, just rewind to the beginning of the show. They gave you a quick little rundown of the Thursday night showdown. I want to start with a thanks to Alfredo. Please remind everyone where they can find you. You did so great tonight, and your show is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, man. So yeah, my show is the Pretend GM. Like I said before, I'm a former college football scout, and I do my show with an actual physician who talks about injuries, Dr. Vignesh Dorswamy. You can find us anywhere you get podcasts, the Pretend GM Dynasty Football podcast. You can find me on Twitter, just like you see my name there, at Alfredo Brown GM. You can find the show at the Pretend GM.
Kyra, any parting words for our friends?
No, guys. I mean, at least we have a really good game to look forward to tonight. Hopefully lots of fantasy points to go around. I hope that we helped you out, and I look forward to seeing a couple of those new followers on Saturday for the Cash Grabs article. I'd be really excited to help people win a lot more money.
I love it. So guys, hit subscribe. Please hit subscribe. Not just because we want followers. We do. But once we hit 250, our leader, Josh Hudson, spent way too much money on autographed merch this summer. He's giving things away every time we hit a milestone. We're inching our way towards 250. Hit subscribe so you have a chance to win something. Please check out our Thrive Fantasy promo. I believe it's linked in the description, but if not, it's in every one of our other descriptions. They will match your opening deposit up to $100. It's a very cool little app where you can combine player prop betting and DFS. If we missed any of your questions tonight, I think I did a pretty good job in the chat. We run a show every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern here on the YouTube channel, where all we do is answer start-sit questions. The show is all about you. We have no show sheet. If you don't show up, it's a very boring show, but I'm talking to my friends the whole morning. Finally, if you cannot get enough DFS, check out our website. The DFS report that we put out every week is active right now. It gives you the 10 best matchups at every position and the 5 worst matchups at every position, just very informational. And then on Saturday, as Kyra mentioned, her Cash Grabs article where she is just hitting it out of the park right now, batting over 700. That's a Hall of Famer. Make sure you check that article out. We usually try to get that out before noon. And then later on in the day, Oklahoma Doug writes a showdown article called Oh Captain My Captain. He'll be focusing on the Sunday night game, Kansas City and Buffalo, again this week. So as I've mentioned, we appreciate every single one of you. If we missed any questions, please hit us up in the chat on Saturday or DM any single one of us. Our Twitter handles are in our descriptions. Good luck tonight. Have fun with this game.